What's up? I'm not really in the mood to talk about this, to be honest. It's almost Christmas, and I'm supposed to be having a nice, relaxing, festive holiday. But, as usual, my frigging holidays never go as I plan. I don't think I've actually had a holiday since I started working as a monster hunter without a damn monster interrupting it. I'm serious. The last time I actually managed to sneak away for a week without being disturbed was that camping trip I took straight after returning from Crystal Face's little tournament. Other than that, there was Egypt, where I ended up in a demonic gang war over that frickin' Bennu bird. Then there was my leisurely cruise around the UK, which ended up with me being tricked by Decca into chasing those bloody Dobharchu in Ireland. And now, well, I don't even know how to explain how I got myself caught up in this mess. A strange string of events has led me to where I am right now, which is somewhere in Iceland, by the way. I'm on the trail of what is known as the Yule cat, if you can believe it, although I'm inclined to believe it's just an exaggerated description of a remnant big cat, similar to those ones in the UK. However, the tracks I'm following at the moment are seriously larger than the other big cats I've come across. The prints in question are about the size of a polar bear's in my opinion. Not that they're easy to find in this snow, but they seem to be getting bigger the further I follow them. I'm assuming that means I'm catching up with the bloody thing and not that it's growing larger. It better not be. That wouldn't be bloody good. It's already the size of a bear. No, I haven't mistaken the trail for a polar bear's trail. I can tell the difference between bear tracks and a cat's, even in this weather. Anyway, I'm freezing my gonads off in a -3 snowstorm, and the timber I managed to collect from around my campsite and dry out isn't going to last long. I'll have to make this quick so I can get my head down and hopefully pick up the trail in the morning. So, I'll explain the Yule cat legend first for those who don't know the story, then I'll tell you my part in this, from the beginning. The story of the Yule cat, or Jalakaturin, if you can even understand what I just said. I definitely haven't pronounced it right. But it says that the creature is a giant black cat, with glowing eyes that stalks the snowy mountains around Christmas time, eating children, or sometimes just their food, who aren't wearing new clothes. Yeah, it's a pretty strange reason for a giant black cat to be eating children, but obviously the legend has been put in place to scare them into being good and generous. However, I found that most folklore and legends are based on real events, so it's more than likely that there is a creature lurking in the background of them all, even if people have embellished the tales extensively. That fact just makes them more mysterious and interesting if you ask me. But I just love unraveling mysteries, don't I? Anyway, the Yule cat is not just some wild animal roaming the mountains looking for easy prey. Nope, it's actually the pet of a family of trolls or ogres, depending on where you hear the tale. Its owners are Gryla and her husband, the lazy Lepaludi, along with their sons, the Yule lads. Their family has a story of their own in Icelandic folklore, where Gryla, the fearsome troll mother, sometimes also portrayed as a witch, feeds children who don't get new clothes before Christmas Eve to her lazy husband. Their sons, the 13 Yule lads, visit children on the 13 nights leading up to Christmas, one each night, and leave either gifts or rotten potatoes and shoes left on windowsills, depending on whether the children have been good or not. These Yule lads have strange, yet not very terrifying names, to be fair. I'm surprised the children fear such things rather than find them amusing, with names such as Sausage Swiper, Bowl Licker, Doorway Sniffer, and Candle Beggar. My Icelandic pronunciations are terrible, so I've just said their names in English, but you see what I'm talking about. Not exactly striking fear into your heart, are they? The worst ones are Door Slammer and Meat Hook, which aren't much worse than the others really. These guys are supposed to come leading up to Christmas, and they don't leave until early January. The purpose of these tales is to make sure that everyone is ready for winter in this frozen country, as there can be very severe weather around the winter months, and also to promote generosity amongst communities, ensuring everyone gets what they need, as well as keeping the children in check. That's exactly what is needed in a place like Iceland, especially around Christmas time when snowstorms are a regular occurrence. So I can see why they came up with this legend. But like I said earlier, they're all based on something real in my opinion. So who knows, maybe this bloody cat's leading me back to Gryla's house. I am in the mountains where they're supposed to live after all. Darn it, almost half my wood stash has gone already. I'll have to keep it burning lower if I want to get through my part in this whole thing before it's nothing but ash. Alright, listen up, because I've got no time to repeat myself. I'm not going to freeze my butt off longer than needed, so I'm just going to lay it out straight for you lot. If you saw my last episode, you'll know that I got back from Scotland after dealing with those boo-bree penguins in mid-December. I actually got home on the 15th as I stopped off on the way to do a bit of Christmas shopping in New York before taking the second flight home. I don't have any family that I know of, so it was mostly just stuff for me and my cat Fluffs, but it cost me 2 days, so I didn't get back until the 15th. I had planned to go up to Alaska for Christmas and was on my way there when I received a call from a very old friend, and I was given an invitation I really couldn't refuse. So, I'm maybe 3 hours into the drive, not exactly miles from home, but I still wasted 6 hours, when I received a call from an unknown number. I picked it up and answered, wondering who it was. Hello.
Hi, is that Mally?
That depends on who you are.
Sorry, are you Mally from Unit 777H?
Now, Unit 777H is what my unit was called when I was in Monster Hunter training on Maker Mountain, and only another member of that unit would know that. At first I was gobsmacked as I hadn't heard that name in years, then I recognized the voice. There's no frickin' way. That's never Will Stevenson?
You bet your ass it is Mally. How you been, fella?
So the quick explanation is, there were 8 members of our unit who made it through the final trial, and Will was attempting to gather us for a reunion after 8 years. First we just talked for a few minutes, catching up, and then he gave me the verbal invitation, which I was actually pretty excited about.
Listen, Mally, what are you doing for the holidays? Don't tell me they got you working.
No, mate. I was just heading up to my cabin in Alaska for Christmas. I'm just driving up there now. Why?
That's great, because I have a proposal for you. I'm organizing a little reunion for the guys at my new lodge. Or trying to, if I can get hold of them. That's why I rang to see if you'd be interested.
I pulled the car over straight away, immediately excited at the idea. Oh hell yes I would.
That's amazing, fella. I knew you'd be down for it.
Who else is going?
Well, up to now, just you, me, and Rip. Sadly, Brent was eaten by a sea monster back in 2020. Did you know that?
No, I haven't heard anything about any of the old units since we had that drink a few months after graduating.
Yeah, me either. I just found that out when I was looking you lot up. Also, Corey won't be coming. He has 2 kids now, and he's currently living in Australia. He wishes he could, but he won't leave his family at Christmas.
That's fair. What about Tomo, the kid, and Big Nate?
Not sure. I haven't managed to get hold of them yet. We shall have to see. But you're definitely coming, yeah?
Wouldn't miss it for the world, mate.
One last thing. My place is in Iceland. I hope that doesn't change your mind.
Not in the slightest, mate. I'll pull a few strings and be there in no time at all. Just send me the address and expect me in 3 days tops.
Brilliant. I knew I could count on you, fella. You always were the most reliable in the unit. Okay, I'll text you the address and see you when you arrive. Hopefully with good news about the other lads.
After that, I turned the car around, went back home, and packed while calling in a favor from HQ. Yes, I got them to loan me the use of one of their private jets. It was much easier than trying to get a flight to Iceland on the 17th of December. So they flew me over, and I was there by nightfall the next day. In Iceland, I mean, not the resort. I had to stay at the company's barracks that first night because a bit of a storm was rolling in when we arrived. Then it took most of the next day to get to his resort, which was on the edge of the Icelandic mountains foothills, way out past the last town. I found out later that the sneaky bastard had turned trapper a few years back and had just been saving all his commission until he had enough to build this resort, which was a lovely little place to be fair, but that wasn't where I would have built it. And now, he was retiring. I'm not sure how old any of the old unit are. Most of them, besides the kid, were older than I was when we were in training. It wasn't like they were old men, but the kid was only around 20, so I know he was younger than me. I reached Will's place around 3 p.m. This beautiful log-wood building on the edge of a small forest. It looked like something out of a fairy tale and easily big enough to house a few dozen people. I walked up the long path and knocked on the big double doors. Will answered the door in this ornate red robe, with a cigar in one hand and a grin on his face like the Cheshire Cat. He looked a lot older than he used to, sporting a short graying beard and thinning hair.
Mally, yes, come in, fella. It's great to see you. Make yourself at home,
He said, waving me inside before closing the door behind me to keep out the cold.
You're actually right on time, fella. Rip's already here and the kid too. I got hold of him not long after I spoke to you, and he was actually in Norway at the time, so he came straight over. He just arrived a few hours ago.
Awesome. Where can I dump these? I asked, pointing to my bags.
Oh, there are 10 bedrooms up on the second floor. Just choose an empty one and pop your stuff in there.
So I followed the corridor to this hand-carved oakwood staircase and was just going up it when he called after me.
Mally, it's really good to see you, fella.
I turned back to see him still smiling. You too, mate, I said, grinning back excitedly. Give me a few minutes to put these away. I won't be long. Then I hauled my bags up the rest of the way. There were at least 15 doors on the landing, 7 on each side, with one at the far end of the landing facing me. The first door on either side was a bathroom. The next room on either side was taken, presumably by Rip and the kid. So, I missed the next room and took the fourth on the left. The rooms were all the same anyway: queen-sized beds, silk sheets, and thick blankets. A large wall-length walk-in cupboard and an ornate dresser, but not much else. The view from the window was nice, though. Mine was of the forest tree line going up the mountain slope behind his house. I quickly popped the few sets of clothes I'd brought into the drawers and then went back down the stairs, where I got a little confused. I walked past the double doors, but found half a dozen rooms beyond the hallway. The first one I entered was a huge kitchen that looked like a restaurant, but almost bare, as if it was hardly used. The next was a room full of what appeared to be ornamental trophies in glass cases from all around the world. Some were from ancient Mesopotamia, which was interesting, and that's where Will found me, checking them out.
There you are, Mally.
Sorry, mate, I got a little lost. This place is huge.
Checking out my trophy room, What do you think, fella?
It's awesome. Where'd you get all these? He smiled and tapped his nose, as if to say he couldn't say.
I knew you'd like it. They're almost all fakes, mind you, but they look the biz, right?
Totally. I wouldn't have noticed at all.
Come on, you can take the tour later. The guys are anxious to see you, and dinner is almost ready.
With that, he ushered me out of the trophy room and into the last door, which was a large square room with a mini bar stocked full to the brim at one end and a table with 8 seats around it at the other, 2 of which were occupied by Rip and the kid. Will waved at the bar.
Help yourself to whatever drinks you want, fella, and I'll be back shortly with the food.
Then he disappeared through a side door quick as a flash. I wavered on the drink for now, as the 2 guys had already noticed me and were becoming overjoyed, laughing and cheering.
Yay, he's finally here, the big man himself,
Called Rip, laughing heartily. He was already drunk by the look of it. What's up, guys? I said, smiling uncontrollably as I strode over to the table and shook their hands, more than happy to see them after all these years. The kid stood up, not a kid anymore, and said,
Mally? Yes, I hoped you'd come. I've heard some stories about you these last few years.
Rip sat back down, swigging his beer and nodding in agreement.
I think we've all heard the stories, kid. but I'd rather hear them from the horse's mouth. Now the horse is here.
I sat down, slightly confused. I hadn't heard anything about anyone from the old unit, and I had no clue what stories these guys had heard about me. "What are you guys talking about?" I said, looking from Rip to the kid and then back again. "What stories?" Rip scoffed, rolling his eyes.
I knew it. He doesn't even know he's famous.
The kid butted in sharply, looking at me with admiration in his eyes.
We heard you went to another dimension, fought in a week-long tournament against the worst creatures imaginable, and won. Is that true?
Then I understood what they were talking about. "Oh right, you mean Crystal Face's Monster Arena." "Yeah, it is actually. I managed to win my freedom and was sent back home, through a portal that makes you hurl by the way." Rip almost swallowed his beer bottle as I spoke.
No shit.
He asked, getting up for another drink. "Nope, it was like hell, mate. I had a different battle every day I was there."
Holy crap, that's awesome. What about the other stories? The alien bug invasion in California and the mutant Mahamba you found in the Congo? Did both of those really happen as well?
The kid was getting more and more excited with every word. "You bet your ass they did," I said, grinning at him and feeling like a superstar. "Well, I actually got lost in the Congo and almost bloody died about 3 times. But believe me, I saw things there that still haunt my dreams. And those bugs that portaled in from a dying world, I had a lot of help with those, including a woman with a drone army." The kid's mouth was wide open in surprise at this point. Rip sat back down, handing me and the kid beers. "Thanks, mate."
Did you hear all that, Rip?
Yep, I heard it. But now I'm itching to hear them in a lot more detail. If Mally would care to indulge us.
I was just about to answer when Will burst through the side door.
Dinner's ready, fellas. Come with me. I'm guessing you lot are starving by now.
We all stood up then and followed him through the side door into the kitchen I'd seen earlier, where trays of food were set out for us to grab and take back into the other room. It was this king-sized roast dinner with beef, turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, veg, gravy, the works. We took it back to the table in the previous room, then sat eating this absolutely delicious meal Will had so nicely prepared. After that, we went into the last of the 4 rooms I'd seen on my way down, where a pair of blue velvet couches faced each other across a coffee table, set beside a large ornamental stone fireplace that was already lit and blazing. The room was comfortably warm and looked very cozy, like a cottage. We all sat down on the couch. The kid and Rip sat opposite me and Will, and then they proceeded to interrogate me about those cases. Damn it, that was the last of the wood. I'll have to finish this off quickly since there's still a fair bit to get through. This storm seems to be calming down a bit now. That's good at least. I wonder if any of the guys are still out here. I bet they've all gone back to Will's. Never mind, I'll find out in the morning if I'm not a frickin' iceberg by then. Alright, where was I? So, the guys got all the details out of me. Then they indulged me with 1 or 2 of their own. To be fair, they hadn't hunted anything like what they've sent me after. Then we retired for the night. The next day flew by. We spent it mostly relaxing, chatting, and exploring Will's resort. Besides what we'd already seen, he had a garage big enough for 4 of my Jeeps, but he only had a snow wagon in there. He had a loft room which was split in 2 halves. One was a little study with a laptop on a desk beside a window, and the other was a sort of games room. We spent at least 2 hours up there playing pool, darts, and trying to beat the kid on old arcade machine games. He's a total whiz at those things like. He surprised me actually. He looked much older than he used to and broader, with this big scar across his cheek that he said was done by a dogman that almost killed him. But he still acted like the same old kid. Rip, however, looked almost exactly the same, broad, tattooed, and hairy, with a full beard and shoulder-length hair, except he was almost gray now and had a bit of a beer belly. He also drank a lot more than he used to. Besides that, both he and Will seemed fairly unchanged in their ways. I also found out Tomo was on a case and wouldn't be able to make it, but Big Nate should be arriving on the 23rd, which was only 2 days away. What was that? Did you hear that? 1 minute, I need to check that noise out. It could be a bear. Nothing. I couldn't see anything out there. I guess it was nothing. So where was I? All right. Like I said, that next day flew by. We sat drinking half the night. We had a call from Tomo saying he was gutted he couldn't make it. He was halfway up the Rockies in Ohio trying to track some vampire that was killing other vampires. It seemed a bit strange, but he'd been on the case for a week and was getting closer, so he wouldn't give up on it. After that, we again retired for the night. Another snowstorm hit overnight, leaving a fresh blanket across the landscape. We all woke up late and slightly hungover, or at least I was. The kid looked half asleep for most of the day, but Rip was back on the juice after lunch. Anyway, it was that afternoon that brought the news that started the ball rolling on our little contest and landed me up this mountain tonight chasing this bloody Yule cat. I will win this, by the way. I've got to uphold my title after all. Alright, back to the story. So that evening, there was an alert on the local news. Some children had been chased by a large black cat with glowing eyes around a nearby town. We discussed the incident, wondering if HQ would send hunters after the creature. That's when I heard the whole tale about the Yule cat and its owners, Gryla and the Yule lads. Then later that evening, another alert came over the radio. That same cat had again been sighted, but this time it had dragged a woman off into the mountains. Her body had been found hours later on the slopes, half-eaten and frozen stiff, not 2 kilometers from Will's property. Before we even decided to make a contest out of it, the kid was already itching to go looking for the creature. At first, Rip refused outright, and Will didn't want to either, but he managed to convince both of them when Big Nate turned up early and suggested the contest. So it started with the 4 of us guys discussing the second incident, sitting by the fireplace in those comfy couches, sipping ale. I bet you it's just another one of those big cats, like the ones from the UK countryside.
You're probably right, fella. I've heard of those.
I think we should go after this thing, lads, before it claims another victim.
We all looked at one another then, as if silently debating it. Then Rip called out.
Hell no. We're on holiday here, kid. All I'm up for is drinking, and even more drinking.
Why not? Don't you guys want to see Mally in action?
Everyone looked at me then, which wasn't uncomfortable at all. I just shrugged as if to say whatever, and slowly sunk into the couch, sipping my drink. I didn't really want to say no way. This happens to me every frickin' holiday, so I just went along with whatever.
No, kid. It's not happening. We're not going after it.
Yeah, he's right, kid. As fun as it probably would be, we are on holiday here and drunk.
He stated, looking at Rip directly, who smiled back happily.
Oh, come on. The 4 of us could totally wrap this up in no time and probably save a few lives.
Just then there was a knock on the door. Will jumped straight up, trying to avoid the conversation, and ran excitedly to the door.
Mally, are you up for it?
Asked the kid, looking hopeful. I couldn't bring myself to say no, so I just answered, "If everyone's going, I'll go." He smiled at that, then looked at Rip, who just sat back, shaking his head in defiance.
Answer still no, kid.
Then in walked Will, followed by Big Nate. Now, Big Nate used to be this huge guy, as tall as me, with a lot of weight behind him if you get my meaning. I never asked his weight, but he weighed far more than anyone else in the unit. However, now the guy was buff, extremely buff. A lot bigger than me and looking fitter than a fiddler's fiddle. After a quick greeting, he immediately asked,
Are we going after this Yule cat I keep hearing about then, or what?
Rip instantly sighed. The kid clapped his hand on Nate's oversized shoulder looking tiny beside him.
Yes, Nate. We'd love to, if Rip will get his grumpy face out of his ass.
Rip grumbled, looking at Will, who shrugged his shoulders as he put on his coat.
Damn it. Fine. But I'm telling you now, this better be the most fun I've ever had.
We could make it a contest.
This pricked up everyone's attention. The kid slapped his shoulder, delighted, then removed his hand away quickly, shaking it as if he'd just slapped a brick wall. We all laughed at him, then Will came out with,
We'll need weapons then, but luckily I have just the thing upstairs. Follow me, fellas. I'll get you lot kitted up for a hunt.
Then we followed him upstairs to the end door of the corridor, which was his room. Then he beckoned us inside. His room was basically the same as the others, except he had a small control panel on the wall beside the light switch. He tapped on it a few times, then stepped back as the wooden panels on the side wall began to slide to the left, revealing a hidden room. He switched on the light and turned to us.
Help yourself, fellas. It's fully stocked.
We all spilled into the room that was pretty much chock full of weapons and ammo. It was really something. There were rifles of almost every kind lining the walls vertically, carbines, submachine guns, sniper rifles, and a few shotguns, although he never had a Remington, which was disappointing. He even had a bloody rocket launcher, though, sitting in the corner. There were so many cases lined side by side on the opposite wall, holding daggers, knives, batons, and other hand weapons. There were at least a few dozen pistols laid out in them too, everything from old war pistols such as the Mauser to the latest Glock Gen 5s. And yes, he did have a Desert Eagle similar to mine, and yes, I did take it. I also took an M16, a dagger like my old one from years back with an ivory handle and a 5-inch blade, and a police-style bat. Then, I grabbed a few grenades from his drawers. He had 3 different drawers full of them, one with frags in, one with smoke, and one with flashbangs. Then, taking plenty of spare ammo, I quickly grabbed my coat, and we all lined up behind the front door.
So what's the rules of this little contest?
Inquired Rip from the back of the line, holding an AK-47 casually by his side.
Whoever bags the kitty wins, obviously.
Smirked the kid, an MP5 in one hand and a machete in the other. Nate stood tall beside the door, with this M60 slung over his shoulder like a toy and a grin on his face.
This is gonna rule. I can't wait to beat the famous Mally on a hunt.
At that I scoffed, then smirked back at him. You wish.
All right. We'll run up to where the body was found first, then we split off and see who comes back with the beast. Agreed?
We all nodded in agreement, then followed Will and his combat shotgun out to his snow Jeep and headed for the slope in question. Quick ending to this story now, guys. This fire's nothing but embers, and I can feel the cold more than ever. So when we arrived at the slope, Will handed us all a small pack from the trunk with a tent and sleeping bags in them, along with 2 bottles of water and some dried ration bars. Then we split off, trekking up the slope, all eager to win this game. At first, we stayed close enough to shout insults at one another, but after half an hour, I was walking all alone. I know Big Nate and the kid had planned on going solo, but Will and Rip were walking together, so I think they were probably going to team up. Anyway, shortly after I lost sight of everyone, the snow started picking up, but I had already found some tracks by then. I couldn't discern what had made them. At first, they were far too sunken by a fresh layer of snowfall. But I followed them anyway as there was nothing else, and by the time it was really dark and I was forced to make camp for the night, I could clearly make out they were cats' paw prints. I'm around 3 kilometers from our starting point and in the opposite direction from Will's place. So now, I'm going to get into this sleeping bag and hope I can find them in the morning. Well, provided I haven't turned into Frosty the Snowman by then. A few hours should do me, just until dawn breaks. Hey, so I was just woken up by footsteps outside the tent, pretty heavy ones at that. It's not a bear or this bloody cat. It sounds bigger than that. It stopped now. I've got my M16 ready, so I'm going to just pop my head out, see what it is, and take it out or at least scare it away with the noise. Here goes. Holy shit. It's running away. I've lost it already, balls. Friggin' snow. It's fast like. Well, its legs looked longer than me, so I'm not surprised. I am surprised it ran though. Maybe I hit it somewhere that hurt. I don't see any blood around though. Just these huge prints, almost 3 times the length of mine. And more of those cat prints. These are fresh though. Alright, I'm going after the cat. The troll's moving way too fast. I'll never catch up to him. But the cat is smaller. I might be able to catch it now. It has to be close, and it is the challenge target. Don't worry, I'll explain exactly what just happened on the way. Alright, so when I opened the tent flap, there he was, bent right down with his huge head close to the top of the flap. I wasn't expecting that at all, so I just opened fire instantly, spraying up at its chin. He was a weird-looking thing. Very tall, easy more than 5 meters. Long and gangly, and I mean his arms were down to his knees and his legs went up to a short hunchbacked body. His head was long and thin, kind of Grinch-like to be honest. If the Grinch had short gray hair, eyes like saucers, and large pointy ears. What got me though, was the hat, scarf and coated hat on. They looked knitted, like what a child might wear. But all I saw initially was the look of surprise on its face. It was more startled than I was. He bounced up like a spring when I opened up with the M16 and just turned and ran. He was gone in a few seconds. I tried running after him, but I barely got 20 paces before I turned back. This cat's been around as well, and I'm hesitant to believe it, but I think it was with that troll. Now, I don't usually put much stock in the fairy tales. I believe there are truths in them, but if that cat was with that troll, was that thing a Yule lad? No, there's no way. That can't be correct. An actual Yule lad? The guys will never believe me if I come out with that. Hopefully, I can bag this cat, and then it will make for an interesting side story, but I guarantee they won't buy it. Maybe the kid might, but Rip won't for sure. Alright, these tracks lead up to this cluster of trees along a ridge. Hold up a minute. I can see a figure moving along the slope in the distance. It's human-sized, so not another Yule lad, but it could be one of the guys. I better check these trees out before they get here, just in case. So, I walked over to the tree line, and that's when I saw it. A pair of glowing pale green eyes staring at me from the bushes, not 20 yards away. I instantly raised the rifle and started backing up, but the beast took that as time to hunt and came launching out from the bushes, this polar bear-sized black panther, bouncing towards me through the snow. Of course, I opened up straight away, making the figure in the distance drop to the snow. I must have hit it a dozen times in the head and chest before it pounced on me, knocking me to the ground. Thankfully, the beast was barely alive at that point, clawing feebly at my jacket. I pushed it off, pulled out that blade with the ivory handle, and stuck it in up to the hilt, just behind its ear. The cat slumped, and I rose to my feet, triumphant and bloodied. Then that figure came running over, shouting excitedly. It was only the kid.
What a bloody display, Mally. I saw it all. And wow, just wow. Way to live up to your reputation, lad.
He smiled, but I could hear a hint of jealousy in his voice. I just smirked bigger than I ever had while he took pictures of the cat and sent them to everyone, making out that he had caught it at first before revealing the truth. Then we headed back to pick up my tent, then went back to the car and awaited pickup from Will and Rip, who had given up as soon as the storm hit and went back to the car. Then, when nobody else came back, they went to Will's and forfeited the contest. I was kind of disappointed in those too, but I guess I should have expected as much. They didn't want to go in the first place. Nate was already there when we arrived. He'd had an experience of his own that I will reveal in a moment. But the kid had been trudging around all night in the storm, eventually finding fresh tracks close to that ridge. Excitedly following them led him to me. Besides that, he said he thought he saw someone right after the storm started, high up on the slope, but he could barely make it out. Then it just disappeared. Now, Nate had the worst experience if you ask me, even worse than mine. So, Big Nate was high up on the slope. He'd been training a lot lately, and being that fit, he'd gone ahead of everyone, thinking he'd get to it first that way. Then the storm hit, and up where he was in this high valley, he was being battered by icy winds. He tried to turn back, but then he found this huge cave, at least 5 meters high, so he took refuge from the storm inside. The cave was big, like a huge tunnel stretching back further than he cared to venture. He started to explore it, but after a while, finding no signs of bears, he just returned to the entrance, and, seeing the storm still raging, he set up his tent close, but far enough back to stay out of the wind, and got into his sleeping bag. He didn't sleep. He just waited and waited for 3 hours, and that's when it all started. The first thing was a sort of low whistling sound echoing through the tunnel. He said he got up straight away and left the tent, M60 in hand. But the tunnel looked empty. This whistling continued for around 10 minutes, barely audible, but there. Then suddenly the whistle turned into a childlike giggle that echoed down the tunnel, seeming to bounce from wall to wall around him, and then echoed off back up the tunnel, as if the echo was alive. He said all his hairs everywhere stood on end, and his body went tingly all over. Then the voices started, muffled at first, and coming from deep in the tunnel. He quickly packed his things and backed up to the entrance. The voices got closer, and he could make out words. Not a language. Well, not of human tongue, more like grunts and sniffs, with an occasional belch. Always one was giggling or crying out like a spoiled child would do. The closer they got, the more it sounded like there was of them. He was debating whether to run as there was at least 10 of them, and they sounded big judging by the echo. Then the voices abruptly fell silent. Nate froze up, preparing to rush headlong into the storm. Then he could hear long, loud sniffing, like some creature with oversized nostrils was searching for a scent. Then a cackle broke out, a witch-like cackling, and that was it. Big Nate was then sprinting faster than his legs could carry him through 2 feet of snow, plowing right through it, adrenaline pumping hard. He said he must have run half a kilometer straight down the slope before he collapsed in the snow. He didn't dare rest for more than 2 minutes though before heading back to the car's location, which wasn't there when he arrived. But it was only 15 minutes later when the kid sent out that pic of the Yule cat to everyone. So, yeah, it was quite an eventful night, except for the 2 grandpas who went home early. The strangest thing, though, was when we called it in, and when they sent a team out to retrieve the body, they couldn't find the bloody thing. They apparently went to the right area, which would have been hard to miss with it being the only tree cluster on a ridge any of us seen, but apparently it was gone. Who knows what happened to it? Maybe it was taken by that troll for burial. It was with him around my tent that night. Or maybe those things in the cave really were Gryla and the Yule lads, and it really is their pet. If so, they must be absolutely fuming with us for killing it. I don't know. What I do know is, I won the challenge and kept my reputation, the reputation I just found out I had. After that, we all stayed at Will's over Christmas and New Year, laughing and drinking mostly. Then we all drifted away one by one over the first days of the new year. And that was our little Yule cat experience. Weird as always, but kind of fun when I looked back on it. The entire 12 days I was there were the best time I've had for years. So despite the creature feature of this holiday, again, it was clearly my best holiday yet. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a Christmas as fun as mine this year, and I hope the new year comes in with fireworks too. Don't forget to like and comment, it really helps. Merry Christmas everyone. See you next time.